Good evening, everybody. This is Bob Ost, and welcome to the TRU Community Gathering, our Friday get-together of people of everybody, and the artists and the producers in our community. Everybody is going through the same struggle right now. We're all basically dealing with. We're all dealing with this with the same thing, which is isolation. Trying to figure out how to be creative during a period when nothing seems to be happening. We can't have live theater. That's just a reality. Everybody who is like frustrated and really cursing about this, curse as much as you want to, but wear a mask and socially distance. Because in the long run, we really want to be able to have a healthy community later. And if we do this too fast, if we try to come back too fast, it's not going to be good in the long run. It's now longer than any of us were expecting. Back in March 15th, when New York shut down, and I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do with TRU? How do I do this? And then I sort of started these gatherings on April 17th and have done them every week since. We thought at that point, worst case scenario, we'll be back in June. Well, I guess we didn't say specifically what year we meant when we said we'd be back in June. So we're still dealing with this and still coping. And I am of the belief that it's a little less of a strain if people can get together and meet each other and talk about what they're doing and talk about the frustrations and talk about what they're also succeeding in doing. Because a lot of people have done amazing things during this period. Virtual presentation is not, the end of the world for us. We are able to survive and thrive and create work. I also like to remind everybody this is a great time for development. You can start developing pieces on virtual platforms, and just hang in there. We all have to hang in there because it's going to end at some point, but we don't want to pretend it's going to end sooner than it should be. And right now we're in a third spike. Everybody knows that, right? We're in a third spike in the United States. So let's just pat ourselves on the back for being patient and for being safe and for staying healthy, and most of all for staying creative. It's my pleasure to introduce voices from outside of New York. We tend to be so New York centric here. Thanks to Zoom, we no longer have to be or can be because we have people in the room from all over the country, and we sometimes have people from outside of the United States. That's a gift. Let's count the gifts. Let's not complain about the challenges, but let's count the gifts that we all have now. So I'm going to talk to 3 different theaters on 2 different coasts, and representatives, people that are involved in the artistic running of those theaters, and we're going to look at how the country has been coping with this. We suspect that we're all going through pretty much the same thing, but maybe we're dealing with it in different ways. New York, for instance, we were really the epicenter for a while, so we had to shut down brutally, completely, and be extremely careful. I'm not sure whether it's been as bad and challenging in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, or in Abingdon, Virginia, but you've certainly been dealing with it there. And the Geffen Playhouse in California, we also know California is a comrade in struggle and strife and challenge right now with New York. I will go through my usual ladies first introductions. I'm going to have our 3 guests introduce themselves to you and tell you a little bit about who they are, what they do at the theater that they work for, and a little bit of background about the theaters. Katy Brown come on in and say hello from the Barter Theatre.
Hi, everybody. So nice to see all your faces earlier. Yes, I am the producing artistic director at Barter Theatre, the State Theatre of Virginia. And I'm a director and choreographer by trade, and I haven't even been in this position for a year. I've worked at Barter for a long time, but took over this position and then was almost immediately hit with a pandemic. And so it's been a very educational experience. Just very quickly, though, I want to tell you about our theater. It's Barter Theatre because it was literally the trading theater. Robert Porterfield, who started the theater, was an actor on Broadway, and during the Great Depression, he and his friends weren't making any money. His family farm was down here in Virginia, so he brought them all back down. They actually had no money. They hitchhiked. They came down, and you could have a play for 35 cents or the equivalent in victuals, produce. People brought baby pigs, you name it. And the first summer, they made less than $5, but there was a collective weight gain of over 300 pounds among the actors. And so we've been running strong ever since. We're one of the oldest regional theaters in the country. And so we're built for hard times like this. We keep reminding ourselves of that. And I don't know, Bob, if this is a time for me to tell what we've been doing during the pandemic, or if you want to go in and introduce the others.
I'm gonna save what you're doing in the pandemic for the next round of questions and discussions. Right Absolutely. Now, I just want the background. And by the way, when did you come on board the Barter as the artistic director?
When?
Yeah,
it'll be a year in a week.
And prior to that, there was Rick Rose.
That's right.
We should talk about the legendary Rick for a moment.
Yes, absolutely. An amazing man and my mentor in a lot of ways. I came here as an acting intern many years ago, and have then was one of his associate artistic directors and the head of casting here. And he took us from being a much smaller organization to grew our budget by leaps and bounds. We now run in full rotating rep with a resident company in 2 different theaters. He's just a really incredible growth force, and just retired last year.
Yeah, I was excited. I was actually surprised. I didn't know. I actually had no idea. So I was glad that somebody directed me to you. I'm so happy to have you with us. Jeff Coon, we'll stay on the East Coast for a second.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jeff. I, like Katie, am really glad to see so many new faces. David, it's great to see you. As always, my friend. I'm very happy to have been invited to be a part of this discussion by Bob. We share a Penn connection. Go Quakers. I am the annual fund foundation manager here at the Fulton Theatre, also a historic place in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which, for those of you who don't know, is about 90 minutes west of Philadelphia. We are the largest theater in Pennsylvania that's not in Pittsburgh or Philadelphia. We have a subscription base of about 10,000 people prior to COVID. Yeah, we are in the midst right now of, and this was happening obviously before COVID, of a $30 million renovation to our historic building. It's essentially, we have phase 1, which was completed in December of last year, 16 brand new artist housing. I'm actually in one of them right now because of the construction that's happening on the other side of the building where our offices are. I'm in one of the artist apartments as my office temporarily. And then phase 2 is audience amenities. It's a new lobby. It's 27 new bathrooms. So we're dealing with how to continue to raise money for this larger project while also keeping funds coming in on a daily basis for the annual side of things. My background is I was a theater artist. I still am. I still am on stage every once in a while. I was a performer and decided about 10 years ago that I was tired of waiting for the theaters to sort of say, okay, we'll hire you now so you can work, and started to do a little bit of producing on my own, and got into this position at the Fulton. I'm just starting my 3rd year in September.
So Jeff, I want you to know that TRU is very much dedicated to that philosophy. We're always telling artists, if you're tired of waiting around for somebody to discover you and produce you, try making your own opportunities. So we very much cater to self-producing artists as well as producers. Self-producing artists, I always like to remind everybody, we love the anagram SPA because producing yourself is so incredibly relaxing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a day with a nice long rub down.
Yeah, producing. Sure. That's right. Yeah. So interesting. We have two historic theaters with long histories here with us, representing the East Coast. The West Coast is a slightly different story. Gil, yours is something that you created, and it's a new theater, relatively new. It's not new, but it's 1995. Was it? When was it?
Yeah, so the Geffen, is that siren from my end or your end? I can't.
Oh, the siren's my end.
Oh, no, I just want to make sure I didn't have, it's all good. Yeah, my name's Gil Cates Jr. Really nice to be here. I'm the executive director of the Geffen Playhouse. The Geffen was founded in 1995. So we were just about to go into what would have been our 25th anniversary year, which was kind of a celebratory moment, obviously, to look back at the history, the changes moving forward. And that's when the pandemic really, took hold. But yeah, my father actually founded the theater when he was the dean at the UCLA School of Theater, Film, and Television, and he got UCLA to buy the building, which was the Westwood Playhouse. And UCLA bought the building, and the theater took a long-term lease with UCLA. So we're not operated by UCLA, but they do own the building and cover certain things, which is, overall obviously a plus. So he founded the theater 25. I'm glad that 25 years feels very young. That's great. It's not an old theater. I joined the board. I had been going to the theater since the beginning. Was close with my dad in the same industry, and I've been the executive director for 6 years now, and been on the board for eight and a half, and happy to talk about any aspect of it right now. It sounds like this will be the part 2 conversation.
It will be, yeah.
Yeah, the talking about the Geffen Playhouse and what we're doing and how we've pivoted, but that's a little bit about the background. Happy to answer anything else about it.
I want to tap into the emotion of it with all three of you. I want to go back to Katy. I want to talk about how long did it take you to realize this was happening, and when did Abingdon, Virginia, realize that they had to shut down and that COVID was a real thing? We know how it happened here. How did it happen in Abingdon?
I think the whole country was watching you all so closely because we knew this was happening overseas. And then when it came to New York, we have so many friends there. It became apparent pretty quickly, and we closed down before we were forced to. But it was the middle of it was in March. We had just seen that our season was off to a great start. We were really excited about all those things. We had our first quarter board meeting, and then within a week, we were shutting down. And it was only a week before we were about to open our entire spring rep. So that was really hard. It was shocking.
Oh, explain to everybody how you run shows in repertory. So it's like when you're about to start, you have like 3 or 4 shows ready to go.
That's right. We have a resident company of about 14 equity actors and 6 to 8 non-ex, and our apprentice company, and they are all doing the shows together, but they're usually in 2 or 3 while they're rehearsing 2 or 3 more. At the same time, we do about between 25 and 35 different shows a year for 145,000 people. It's a big operation to stop really quickly.
Oh, so did you mention you have 2 different theater spaces?
That's right. We have a historic main stage of about 500, and our stage 2 is 167.
So the pivot. Who sat down together and said, "What are we going to do?" I mean, you weren't alone in this.
No, of course. Our senior staff team all got together. I remember the last day we could see each other's faces. And I had also met with production that weekend. We hoped we could get all 3 of the shows recorded really quickly because we were about to go into tech. And so we met over the weekend with the full production staff to say, can you do the lights 2 days faster? Can we get this finished rehearsal? Can we get them in the can? And so we were all geared up to do all 3 shows, get them all recorded in a week. And the next morning, the numbers just got so scary that I said, I don't want you in rehearsals together anymore. Stop, everybody stop.
Good for you.
Yeah, it was, but that was a wild moment, I'm sure, for everybody around the nation.
And how have you adjusted? What is your programming now? You are one of the few companies that actually found a way to do an outdoor presentation.
That's right. So, well, we've done a lot of online first, while we were figuring it out. We moved our Macbeth production online and actually doubled the number of students that were going to come and see it, which was exciting. We were able to do some online readings, do some on-demand work, that kind of thing. But we have the gift of a lot of land here. And we had, I wanted to see if we could do drive-in. I didn't feel good about people sitting outside together. People at that time were not wearing masks down here, and I didn't want to turn our ushers into bouncers. So I said, if we could keep them in cars, I'd feel good about it. And, did a whole lot of trespassing, going different places. And one of the places that I trespassed was the old drive-in theater here. It was defunct. It looked like Chernobyl in there. One of the neighbors said it was just a wreck. But I took in some other people with me and said to my sound guy, hey, could we do that? Could we get to people's car radios? My scenic designers, could we build a stage up high enough that everybody could see it? Can we mount a projector on the roof so that we can shoot onto the screen? We're doing all of that. We had some partners, and I can show you some pictures quickly if you want, but
yes.
It was, we had to figure out, we actually had a former equity company member who was in live TV, and he taught us basically how to do live switching so we can shoot up onto the big screen for close-up so everybody can see. So people can stay in their cars and enjoy a play in the car, a play on the stage, and a movie on the screen all at the same time. And we've been really thrilled to be able to do that.
Okay. I just made you a co-host, so we can do a screen share. But let's go through. Let me talk to the other guests first, so we can come back. And also, Gil and Jeff, let me know if you have anything that you want to show on with a screen share. I can make you a co-host. Just let me know. Let's go to Gil. Gil, I got to tell you, I was more conscious of COVID in California before I was in New York. It got to you early, didn't it?
It did. It's the last 6 months, 9 months in certain ways are a blur. So many of the dates that are in my head are like play openings or, recordings of politicians when they said things were going, like I have a weird, it's like weird timelines, but I can tell you that Matt Shackman, who's our artistic director, who's my partner, we shut down basically, and we let the other theaters in town know. We're friendly. We called Center Theater Group, we called Pasadena before they had, and we said, hey, just so you know, we don't want to surprise you. We're going to do this, and we did it about a week before anybody did. We just wanted to stay ahead of it. Safety number one, like you can't mess around with this stuff. And we saw other people, not necessarily in LA, trying to find ways to be like, clever about how they were going to do it. But we had one show that we had fully built in our smaller theater, similar sizes to what Katie was saying in terms of the 500-seat theater and the our smaller space, which can hold between 77 and 160, depending on if it's a cabaret space or what it is. But we had a show called Man of God that had previewed and was set to open, I think, the following night. And Bernhard Hamlet, which was done in New York. This was I believe this production after that, not right after, but in terms of being produced. And we had the meet and greet for Bernhard Hamlet on a Monday or a Tuesday, and then Wednesday we had to shut it down. And it was really, really hard. And like so many things in life, not just with theater, you have to follow your gut. You have to take a lot of information and then just follow your heart. And we were, again, not to pat ourselves on the back, but we were definitely one of the first theaters, at least out here, to close. And like you said, it was well before New York. And we were telling the cast, some of them who were, very emotional, like, I know this seems, surprising, but we feel this is going to keep going. And then, a week later, New York shut down, and then this happened. Then all of a sudden,
So Gil, let me just
thank you.
Let me just clarify. So New York shut down. I know the date because it was my birthday.
Tell me.
New York Broadway shut down on March 11th. So were you March 4th? You were like the week
we were
before?
Man of God was, it was early March. I mean, the preview I think was March 3rd, give or take a day or two.
Yeah.
It was certainly a week before Broadway. And I think once Broadway started to shut down, and the Geffen is a co-producer on Jagged Little Pill, which was running, so I was very aware of that too. And as soon as the other people that were around us, like some people were mad at us, for a few days, like I think we made the wrong decision. But I think once everyone else started to, by the way, I just saw Jane Dubin came up. That's my mother's maiden name. My mom's Jane Cates. Before she was married, she was Jane Dubin. So hi, Jane Dubin. So I digress. So but for a second, I was like, Mom, are you on this? So
Hilarious.
Yeah, but anyway, so it was almost not that we wanted it, but it was nice for a second that everyone got to see we weren't crazy, and that, they were like, geez, we get it now. But there were some people that were definitely resistant at first, flew out from New York, or other things that were like, I don't want to stop now. What, what are you afraid? Like, why are you afraid? This is too early to stop. No, Jane Dubin, she lives in New York City. She sent me an email privately. I'll stop saying answers to Jane Dubin to the group now. So that's what happened with the Geffen in terms of the shutdown. We had a shutdown day after meet and greet, and a show in the smaller space, the ASK, Audrey Skirball Kenna space, a day before opening.
Okay, so Jane is correcting me. She's saying it shut down on March 12th. Yes, it did. What I meant to say was March 11th was the last night of performances, because I went to see Come From Away. And that was my birthday gift to myself. Luckily, it didn't come with a case of COVID. So who knew at that point? We just didn't know. But you really were prescient and smart, Gil. So I commend you for that. Not everybody would have come to the reality of it so quickly. I think we all fought it for a while. I know I did. Jeff, how did it all happen for you in Lancaster? Who did you sit down with? How did you figure out what to do?
Remarkably similar to what Katy and Gil have described, because we were in the midst. I think we were in the second week of our production of Kinky Boots, and we were in the second week of rehearsal for our studio production of Whipping Man. Sorry about all the noise. We watched what was happening. We were using what we called amongst ourselves the Broadway model. We were sort of saying, if Broadway is going to stay open, we were going to stay open. But they closed, as somebody had says, on the 12th, and our final performance of Kinky Boots was on the 13th. We had initially thought, based on the restrictions that were in place in Pennsylvania at the time, that we might be able to continue with the rehearsal process for the Whipping Man, because it was such a small cast, and because the audience would be a limited size anyway. I think we were at that point planning on an audience of about 100 people, and we thought we could limit it to half of that. But ultimately, by the time we finished a meeting that Friday afternoon, the 13th of March, our executive council said, this is foolishness. No matter the size, it doesn't make any sense to close one and keep the other open because it's smaller. So I don't know that we were necessarily prescient insofar as that we had our eye on it. What I remember very clearly is that it all happened very quickly, is that from the beginning of that week to the Friday of that week, in terms of, we take a group of our patrons on a bus trip to New York every year, and we were going up. The following week, we had planned a trip to see Moulin Rouge and, oh God, what was the other one? Doesn't matter. 2 shows in New York, and we.
You know that Moulin Rouge was ground zero for New York theater.
Yeah. And the Monday of that week, we said, no, don't worry about it. I sent out an email, said that we'll absolutely still take the trip. And if you don't feel comfortable, we understand. We'll figure out a way to get a refund. And by Wednesday of that week, we had said, no, this is probably not going to happen. And then Friday it was off. Things changed that quickly in terms of, you know, our outlook. I think both as an organization and I think probably nationally as well, that things went from, oh, this is nothing to worry about, to the smart thing to do is to shut things down as soon as possible. So we were, I think, based on what Katy and Gil have shared, I think we were pretty similar to those two scenarios.
So basically, one of the concerns that we all have is, are we going to be able to afford to get through this? How did you approach your annual budget, and how did you, I mean, I want everybody in the room to be aware of the business. A lot of them are producers, and that's their kind of their wheelhouse. But tell us how you made the business decisions, and what you did and what you're doing to keep financially solvent. Katy, we'll start with you again.
Sure. Well, so much of it, we had to furlough within the first couple of weeks. At the time, we had 104 people working here, and a good number of them we had to furlough, some mostly temporarily, but some it stretched longer because we didn't have a way to have income right away. And our company, many of them have worked here for a long time, and it was this massive Zoom call when Zoom was new to a lot of us, you know, and seeing all their faces. And when I opened the floor for questions after I basically said, you know, we can pay you for 2 weeks and then we're going to help everybody with the unemployment process. And we're going to try to make sure that this theater is in great shape so you can all be ready to come back and work.
Did you apply for PP, for the payroll protection program?
We did, but we did not receive it until much later. Until really the late summer. So at that moment, it was, how do we shore ourselves up? And their first question was, how do we volunteer? How can we help? Like, they were so incredible. We all cried. But really, so that was first, we sort of got ourselves to a place where we knew we could handle it. And then as we began to produce, we were able to rehire a lot of people. We've been able to continue to pay a lot of people's health insurance. We've been able to do those things because we are producing. So the producing is about breaking even, but it's brought in grants and donations and support that is making sure that that we are able to continue to do a lot of that for the people that work for us. We also have actor housing where our quarantine of people is living. So we've been able to continue in good stead this year. As we look into next year, it'll be, I think we all have to look at that with a different lens. But right now, because of the support that people have seen of, oh my gosh, you're still producing, and in a safe way that we know isn't endangering people. People have to roll down their windows if they don't want to, and they're all spaced out. It's helped us to be able to get through and to continue to pay a lot of our folks.
Well done, well done. Jeff, how did you get through this, and what were the steps?
We initially did everyone. We have a full-time staff of about 70 people, which doesn't include any of the actors, or that's basically staff folks and production crew. We immediately went to, everyone goes to 30 hours a week. And this is in March, when everything was sort of up in the air. Who knew how long it was going to last? The initial thought was, okay, we'll do this for 4 weeks. Everyone will go to 30 hours and then we'll revisit then. After those 4 weeks, we knew that it was going to be a longer period of time. And so our executive artistic producer made really difficult phone calls and figured, we're going to have to lay people off, mostly in production, beginning July 1st. So we were able to keep folks employed for the very most part until July. After July, we went to what we sort of call the skeleton, I call the skeleton crew. Nobody else is that morbid. of 16 of us who are still, we are all full-time.
It's an acceptable phrase. It's okay.
I like quarantine so much more. It's a lovely image, Katie.
Also a great play by Dominic Morrisau, so it feels very, you know.
So there are 16 of us now that are here 40 hours a week, full-time, that are charged with basically bridging the gap. When we first shut things down, we were right out of the box. We did online cabarets. We did almost immediately, we tried to do things and learn on the fly online through social media that basically said, hey, we're here, we've shut down, but we're still here for you. We had great response to some of the social media stuff. We planned, our spring fundraiser was to be in April 24th. That was going to be canceled, but we knew that we still had a budget line item that depended on that money being raised. So what we did is we pushed it to July, and we partnered with one of our television, our local NBC affiliate, who's one of our media sponsors, and we did a telethon, and that was huge. It gave us,
Can I just ask
sure.
something? What did you project you were going to make on the telethon? I know what you made. What did you project?
We had to make $91,000 because that was the budget line item for what we needed to match our live fundraiser.
I hate you.
Sorry,
I hate
that's
you.
what we had to make. But to Katie's point,
No, you can tell them what you made.
We made almost $400,000, which is great. I mean, but it's not about what we did. Truly, I really believe it's because there's such a, and I think this is indicative of regional theaters in general, which is different than Broadway. There's a buy-in, there's an investment in the organization, and we have a tremendous community here in Lancaster that said, we don't care that you're not doing anything. We care about what you've done for us in the past. We care about what you're going to do in the future. And the fact that you're putting together this 2-hour-long, hat tip to Jerry Lewis on Labor Day, we want to be a part of that because we care about you as individuals, but more importantly, we care about the longevity of this organization. So I think it's one of the luxuries, if I can say that we have as regional theaters that Broadway doesn't have, that that your local community buys in if you're doing good work that they can believe in, whether it's virtual, whether it's on stage or not. They just want to be a part of it. They want to help you get to where you're going. And that, for me personally, is one of the silver linings of all of this, is that when I send out my normal asks to say, will you help support us? Most people come back and say, yeah, here's twice what I normally give you, because I know things are terrible right now.
Right.
And we're not for profit. So
I gotta say, it's so healing to hear this from you guys, because it kind of balances the mess that the rest of our world is going through right now. To know that there's that kind of support and that kind of goodness in theater. I don't know if it's everywhere, but it's in theater.
For sure.
I wonder these days. Gil, I know that you're doing online virtual presentations. I know you're doing some special shows. I'm thinking about the magic things that you're doing. Tell us who you sat down with and who you sort of worked this through with, and how you came up with a plan that was going to help you survive.
Well, I can't tell you that what we thought, March 4th was exactly what happened. I think, like any good plan, you make a plan and then you have to adjust to what you learn along the way. So ours was, a familiar story at first, in terms of we applied for the PPP loan. We got the PPP loan. Also in the summer, though probably a little earlier than when Katie and her group got it. So we started off with a kind of everybody who makes this number and up kind of took a haircut, if you will, and everybody who was here below did the same. So we started by minimizing the overhead until we could understand more. What are we going to do? When is the PPP going to come? Remember, when the PPP loan started, it was very like, you can't let anyone go or you're not going to get this. So we had to like understand the rules. We almost had to wait to make decisions until we could find out more. So it was a very, you know, that kind of a path, but we did get the PPP. We were starting on a 25th anniversary fundraising campaign. So there were elements of that we changed and breathed, you know, new life into. And then the Geffen Playhouse, which we started, you know, pretty much right away. It hasn't been, you know, it's not like nothing in life. It's not easy, but what we've done and what we found could actually make money consistently is all of our shows have been live. So that's the thing we've done since May 7th. So the present that you're referring to, Helder, that we've done as of tomorrow night, 251 performmes.
All live.
All live. So it's not like we're doing it once and then it becomes, live
stream, stream
on demand or VOD or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, again, how we got to this show, how it happened, why we moved, we hit it. We were like, as soon as we talked to Helder about it, I mean, we were creating art before the story was done. We were just like, we jump. What's beautiful about Helder's show, and was to an extent lightning in a bottle with this show, we knew we couldn't recreate theater. You can show theater on a stage with a camera, used old archive footage. You're never going to replace, we just have to own, like, we are not going to replace live theater. So what are the elements of live theater that people respond to that we can create? So the idea of creating something live, a virtual lobby that everybody can go into at 7:30 and see each other before the show, a curtain speech, running the shows Tuesday through Sunday, 8 shows a week, dark on Mondays. We did everything we could to replicate the elements of theater that were replicable, and then combine that with one of the greatest magicians we've ever seen, and the story. And at the end of the day, like everything, it's all about story. His story was about being in quarantine as a child after an accident. So you have this story of relevance about, I'm with you guys. I went through something like this. So people relate to the story, and everybody, which was the other thing, you know, which was a crazy, I mean, our lobby looks like a UPS factory. Everybody got a box, you know, sent to them 10 days ahead of time. And each box had, you know, had different things, and you use it during the show. So Helder, you're doing card tricks at your house. You're like, how is this possible? I'm home. No one came in my house, you know, hopefully not. But so it really, and then we started to see, we may not be able to do everything this show does for the next show we do, but we know what the strengths are and what people are attracted to about this show. And then we've created another one, which opened a couple of days ago, which was reviewed yesterday, actually, in the papers and stuff. And, you know, online and all those things. And then we're going to announce a few more next week, but but they're all live. And that's the thing that I think.
Can I ask you a technical question?
What is many questions as you want.
What is the platform you use? I mean, one of the things that everybody in this room wants to know is the best platforms. I mean, we all know Zoom, but Zoom is not the beginning and the end. We're trying to find out what other things are available.
Zoom is the most practical we found, because the majority of our audience, and I use my mother as an example, and I tell her I use her as an example all the time, which now most of you know. Her name is Jane Dubin. She is not going to, what? Shindig? Membership? What do I have to do? Like, everyone now kind of knows Zoom. So to minimize the
learning curve,
the frustration. I mean, every show we have people calling our box office. How do we do this? You know, my speaker, my sound, so you're going through that stuff, but Zoom is great. We did a virtual fundraiser, and we were just, you know, like Jeff was saying, ours was supposed to be in March. We did it in, 2 months ago. We created a platform. And we did that. There's no rules. I do think Zoom as an entryway is an immediate thing. We're creating another show that might be using Shindig. The show that's running right now, Inside the Box, which is a crossword puzzle show, David Kwong, who's a New York Times crossword constructor. There was a video team that created something that streamed through Zoom. So if you go, you can Google it. If you look at geffenplayhouse.org, you can see some visuals. We control who's in seat 1, who's in seat 2, who's in seat 3, who's in seat 4. It's still 24 plus David 25, but it's still like the Zoom layout. But there's ways to manipulate the Zoom layout and add, there's now when David comes up, he comes up in a circle when everyone else is in a square. But again, my mother still only has to click Zoom, which she's already a member of, versus re-educating and getting, so we're not married to Zoom, but it's been the right choice for a lot of reasons so far.
Well, Katie has just typed into chat that she uses StreamYard. My understanding is that Zoom is very limited in terms of, it doesn't have good quality for musicals. So StreamYard may have been a better choice for
for musicals, different story. None of the shows we're doing now are musicals.
Right.
I don't think we'd want to do a musical on Zoom. That sounds like a show within itself, the making of a musical on Zoom.
I'll write it. Katie, so tell us about StreamYard. What are the advantages of StreamYard, and why do you like StreamYard?
The nice thing about StreamYard is just that the editing, it's a lot easier to bring people in and out. We don't necessarily use StreamYard live. We've done it with some of our programs from home. If we want to have actors be able to do a reading from home, it gives our marketing team a lot of real ease and beauty in being able to move things around and fade things in and out, use sound the way that they want to. We just found that it was easier to manipulate and felt a little less squares all the time.
Isn't it limited to 6 people on screen?
I think you can only have 10 on StreamYard.
10, okay. Jeff, what have you done virtually, and what platform have you guys used?
We use Zoom almost predominantly. Katie, I'm stealing StreamYard. I'm going to check it out because in some of some of the stuff that we did live streaming through. We had initially tried to do, now this is back in April, so the technology honestly is probably light years different than it was. We tried to stream Zoom through Facebook Live, and that ended up being glitchy. So we ended up just using Facebook Live for the first 3 of our live cabarets. They were live, but some of them were pre-recorded. But primarily we use Zoom because we find it's a great, as Gil said, it's what everybody knows how to do at this point. And given that our subscriber/donor base are on the older side, ease of use, I think, is one of the things that we're constantly trying to make sure that we're providing folks who want to gain access. We don't want anybody to have to jump through an unnecessary hoop.
So, Gil, one of the limitations of Zoom for us, and one of the reasons why I wasn't thinking about using it for our benefit, or I'm not sure, I might use it in combination with something else, is you said that you were able to control the placement of the frames, and you even actually said that somebody came on in a circular frame. So can you tell us how to do that? Because I didn't know that we could.
Well, a couple of things. There's no rules. We didn't use Zoom for our virtual event either. Like I said, we worked with a company and created a site. It was expensive, but worth it because and I'll get to answer your question. We wanted people to be able to break off like they would in breakout rooms, to have dinner together and then all meet and watch the show. And people could pop in the different dinner rooms. And again, to me, it's all about the need of the show. So for example, The Present, one of the reasons it became a hard ticket to get is also because it's 24 people a show. So it's not 500 people a show, it's 24. And so the demand of 24, because Helder's interacting with everybody. Hey, Bob, what do you have? Hey, Jeff, hold up your cards to the camera. Katie, what's your favorite? You can't have really much more than 24 before you start to lose imagery, lose the interaction. That's what made it special. I spoke to someone earlier today who said they shared the experience of the present with their son, who they hadn't seen in 7 months, and how great it was to meet them in the virtual lobby, experience like something together. That's part of why Zoom worked. Now, we're doing a finale tomorrow night for the show, The Present. This is one of our ideas, and the grand finale. So far, we've sold. It's kind of crazy because of the demand that we built. It's over 6,200 people now. So we have over 6,000 people attending our grand finale tomorrow night. That we're using something called Stellar, which is something that Gold Star created. So I watched a test of it last night, and then I'll get back to your circle question. I don't want to hog the time, but if it's helpful, Stellar, what we're doing is we're broadcasting Zoom through Stellar. So I'm watching Stellar. These are view-only tickets. I'm not one of the 24. I'm not paying $75 and getting a box. I want to see what the experience was that I missed. So I'm paying $25 for view-only, or $15 more, and I got a mini version of it. And I'm watching Zoom through Stellar. So we've sold 6,000 plus tickets through Stellar, and then there's 24 people within. That show needed that. The shows that we're developing that don't need 24 people, where the interaction is not as necessary, or maybe we want to have 110 people a show, that might change. We still might use Zoom, like we were all saying, because of the instant use that people have, the familiarity to it. But we are always exploring, and we make decisions. They're never simple, whether to try something new or build something, and whether to stick with Zoom. And each one is unique. What I was telling you about inside the box, this kind of amazing MIT guy that David has, who's like every day, he was 3 hours later, it's 2 o'clock in Philly on a chair with like 20 computers. He built this system. And again, I encourage you, or I can try to find it when you're talking to someone else and I can share my screen, where the 24 people are on the screen. And then David, to answer your question, is like a different image at a different place, but that's being created from somebody that's not Zoom. Zoom has gotten better. Zoom does have where you can have people together. Like Jeff was saying, it's evolved and it's better than it was 6 months ago, but you can manipulate Zoom through other platforms, or vice versa. Stream Zoom through Facebook Live or Stellar or something else, depending on the reach that you want to have.
I think one of the platforms I've heard of is called OBS, which is a production and editing system that basically allows you to do things within Zoom and also within StreamYard. I'm still trying to decide what we're going to use for our benefit. I'm in conversations with a lot of different people. There's lots of choices now. There are a lot of things going on. I just want to remind the room that you have if you have the participants window open, at the bottom of your participants window on the left, I think it is, you should see a virtual hand raise. So if you want to ask any questions, if you want to comment on anything that you've heard so far, please feel free to raise your hand virtually if you can. I want to ask my panelists whether they had anything that they wanted to share, any visuals that you wanted to share. I made you all co-hosts so you can do screen shares. Katie, was there anything you wanted to show us of your production?
Sure. I just wanted to show a couple of pictures of what it is like to see theater at a drive-in. So I'll just share my screen quickly and show you a couple of photos. Hang on. Am I there?
You're there, yep.
All right, this is what our theater looks like, and some of our bartering days. But basically, this is part of the way through the process. This is when we cleaned up all of the rubble and the metal and everything. This is just sort of, but still, you can sort of see what not great shape, even the bones of the place we're in. And we changed the signage, and we worked on the signs just to make things a little bit cleaner. Built a stage right in front of the screen, and the projector is on the roof, so it can shoot for the close-ups on the top 2/3 of the screen, which you can sort of see all over the place. So it's a very concert feeling. And as I mentioned before, we have a quarantine of actors. Our medical advisory board advised us to have them live together. They isolated for 2 weeks. Did lots of testing, and then at that point they are able to actually be together on stage, which meets Virginia guidelines. Just a couple other quick things. This is how you drive in, and they leave their windows up. We do everything touchless. They can hold up their phone in the window with it rolled up, and we can see where to send them. And you can see all the parking spots in the back. They're double wide, so people can sit either directly in front of their car when we're in phase 2 in Virginia, or inside of their car also. And then you can just see here's the whole field.
Wow.
From a crane shot. What people kind of experience. They bring out their food and eat in the beds of their trucks and things like that as a family. But people have been great about not getting anywhere close to each other, all of those things. And then just we're now we've moved into Halloween. We've got, there's skeletons hanging off of things, and there's, we're decorated for Halloween out there so people can see shows. But we've been doing, a lot of very sort of popular family friendly work out there so that people can enjoy it. This is what it looks like from the stage.
Wow.
And they flash their lights and they honk their horns, and you really can get a lot of response. Especially we're trying to do things when you have direct address to people and that kind of things. People really respond, and you can really feel them, which is lovely.
So what did you move out of your budget to be able to do that? Because that looks like it had some costs to it.
Yes. I mean, everything is the answer, right? I mean, we were able to keep a very small, our very small skeletal staff, we call them the same thing, of about 11. And then a lot of the building of this was helped by area businesses. Like Jeff said so beautifully, there is such love in the community for the organization, but also we bring 145,000 through a town of 8,000 every year. They need us up and running. So we had a lot of area businesses that helped us, put the stage up, do some things, a lot of in-kind donations. But we also, have an incredible group of people that are used to making miracles out of not a lot of money. So it's not as expensive as it looks, but it's
pretty impressive.
It's been really exciting, and people have been very responsive. So that's been great.
Jeff or Gil, did you want to show us anything? Do a screen share? It's not required.
I'll turn it over to Jeff in terms of the order that you've started, but only if there's something that I can share that's helpful. I don't want to, if there's something you or somebody wants to see, happy to share it or talk about it.
Well, basically, if there's anything that sort of demonstrates how to do this, how you did it. I mean, there might be somebody in this room who wants to do what you did. I don't know whether we have any drive-in movie theaters, though. I wouldn't be surprised. There's probably one in New Jersey somewhere.
Gil, I have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
When your person streams live to people, is he in the theater? Is he in his home? How do you all do that part?
Fantastic question. So I'll give you the answer. With Helder, we created a set in his apartment. So we had a set designer with the regular people that would work on stage, with an amazing director, Frank Marshall, from the producer. Funny, someone just sent me a picture to share with you that's on this call. But everyone's been in their respective places so far. So there's not an issue of putting people at risk. When we started the show at Helder's, it was height pandemic. So it was like 20 feet apart, spray every step, mask, but we created this environment. So Helder specifically, for those 251 shows, and I just happen to know the number because tomorrow's the last one, and we've been talking about it a lot this week. Helder specifically, it's his fiance behind the camera. He rehearsed with a computer with Frank Marshall, but our team set up everything. And there's 2 stage managers, there's 2 front of house, there's box office. So there's a working group of people that make it come to life. But at the end of the day, it's Helder at his home flicking a switch.
Brilliant. I love that.
Yeah. One of the shows, which we'll hear about next week, there's going to be 5 shows that we're doing in total in the period of 5 months of this live so far. Hopefully we can minimize. I mean, we like this, but obviously at the end of the day, like we all know, live theater, there's nothing like it, at least not yet. And who knows what's going to happen. But one of the shows we're talking about doing in the theater, but not with an audience, kind of, streaming from the theater, but we don't know yet. But everything right now has been people at their homes, and hasn't stopped anything. If the show's good, if a performer's good, if a story's good, and you give people an opportunity to get together and experience something, that's what matters, at this moment more than where.
Well, I think we've come to the end of the hour, although I'm not going anywhere. So, but does anybody in the room want to ask a question, or do you want to make a comment or an observation? Questions preferably. Um,
Do you mind if, and this is, I fully admit that this is probably a sidebar conversation for Gil and Katie, but may I ask both of them what you're dealing with it,
Unions?
yes.
ah,
How did I know?
that.
What have you done? I mean, are you on SAG-AFTRA? Are you dealing with equity at all? What has your experience been?
I didn't have the heart to ask.
No, it's okay. Katie, do you want to go first, or is it not?
I'm happy to talk about that too. Go for it.
Well, some of it is still, so let's start with Helder. We also hit the union jackpot with Helder because Helder was not in SAG. Frank Marshall, who's got a brilliant career, is not in the SDC. And we worked a way up front with USA and everybody where we had, scenic consultants, costume consultant. So we were able to, with Helder, kind of above board, walk the line. We're now getting into a territory with a few of our shows, especially the next one coming up that we're going to announce next week after Inside the Box, where it does have to be, it's 2 union, SAG actors that are part of the 24. And I'm navigating through that now. I have a feeling I know how it's going to go, but we haven't got there. And you're free to reach out to me, as is anybody here. Bob can share my email at any time with questions. But we really kind of lucked out with Helder in the sense that, not that we wouldn't have found a way, but there were so many moving parts and everything was happening so quick that it was nice to have one less hurdle in a tight time frame to have to deal with. But I understand, I'm sure we all see a lot of this. There's the SAG podcast agreement. And so I've been hearing a lot about that. But every union that I realize, or I've seen has gotten a little more lenient as they realize this is going on longer and longer. Some places that at first were like, no way, forget it, are a little more like, well, how do you want to do? So it's, there's more to this answer. I'm being aware of time, but happy to discuss it. But with the show we're planning now, it's more union heavy and we are in the middle of it.
If it's okay with you, I'd love to follow up with just to pick your brain a little bit more about it.
Happy to share whatever. Happy to share what I know. Happy to share what I don't know.
Great, thanks.
Right now, equity and SAG-AFTRA are not on friendly terms, and they've each sent emails to their membership, basically not happy with how the other union is behaving. So we're all caught in the middle of it. We all thought that the way to go right now was SAG-AFTRA contract because everything was being considered new media. It was going to be considered a film. This is a filmed medium. But equity takes a position that's a little different now. And I don't know where it's all going to land. Nobody knows where it's going to land.
And the other thing that's made our situation unique is we're not recording it and showing it. It's not a residual based program. So it's like we're doing it live. So often it's about, well, what if you show it on this channel that 17,000 people are going to see it? And we're like, well, that's not going to happen because it's 24 people a show, 8 shows a week for 5 months. So it's that also, it helps and it hurts that there's not, again, it's kind of threading new language because it's live and not being recorded or shared after.
About the live versus the recorded, your piece allows the audience to be interactive because they're watching it live and they can put comments into chat and they can.
There's no comments because that would open up, inappropriate comments or people making advances or who knows what. So there's no chat function. It's all about, and again, I sent the link for anyone that wants to see it. This isn't a desperate attempt to sell more tickets. It's $25. I'm happy to help if somebody wants to come see it. But if you want to see tomorrow, again, because it's live, tomorrow's the last one. And it's new territory for us. We're excited. And you'll see how Helder interacts with everybody. But that is key. The watching your face or you and me together watching Katy experience something that we all know is live is part of the experience that makes it so present.
Right. Agreed.
That's
Now,
true.
now I'm having second thoughts about, we were going to do a combination of live and pre-recorded. I have to think about that now. Katy, what is your experience with the union? How did you get
I was just
make that
looking at
work?
the chat. Somebody was asking about fundraisers, and for those in particular, I'm sure people are familiar now with using Theater Authority,
Right.
which with all of the things, and that's been a big help. And that way, we can sort of work with all of the unions together. You can't leave it on for a long time; you only get those 4 days or whatever. But that's been a great way for us to do fundraisers in particular. But with the union, any of our online work has either been, with equity using Theater Authority and making sure that we pay everybody the same honorarium as we're doing those kinds of things. And out at the Moonlight, we have really had to stick to shows that are for younger people or adaptations. We have a young company that's been working here for 30 years. We have a 30-year history with the Barter Players. So this is very specifically Barter player work. The union knows all about it, and they've given us a provisional. We were the first theater in all of Lort to get a provisional yes for our work out at the Moonlight for us to be able to do equity shows out there. But because of the pandemic rates everywhere, right now we are waiting until the numbers go down to do our first work with our full company. So we're doing our online work through the union and doing a lot of the live work, basically for young audiences using our young company, which everybody has been wonderful about, and everybody, Lort knows and equity knows, and everybody is together knowing about that. But we're looking forward to being able, we have a resident equity company that we love and are determined to be able to use in every way possible. And they've been very supportive as well.
Well, terrific. I think we have to wrap up now. I want to do my thank yous. I'm so glad that Jeff, Gil, and Katy were able to be with us. I'm glad I asked. I'm glad you said yes. We do this every week, and I'm always open for suggestions of other topics to cover. I've been trying to keep it pretty close to making art during COVID. It doesn't have to be, I suppose. If there are other things you want to talk about, just let me know. That's to my attendees. I am going to put everybody into breakout rooms, but before we do that, I just want to say, donate if you can. I won't stop you. We do this. We've been doing this as free. I'm now really leaning towards what we used to do, which is basically these events are free for true members. But if you're not a member, we do ask you to give some sort of donation, as little as $5, but as much as you can afford is great. As you've all experienced, Jeff, Gil, and Katy, I've also experienced the same generosity from the community, and they've kept us running way longer and way healthier than I ever expected. So thank you all, everybody in the room.